Good day, everybody. Happy whatever this is in your world. We are Stronghorse and I am Oakwalker, and we're very, very happy to be joining you again for Earth Medicine for the Soul. Frank, you want to start with anything?
Yeah, I'll kick it off a little bit. We just a matter of explanation. Oak Walker and our intention is to create a program here where we are sharing experiences with one another in terms of, how a shamanic path or a spiritual path has been beneficial to us as human beings, and be able to pass on that knowledge and that knowing to listeners so that they can give that some consideration about integrating that into their lifestyle also. Um, but I think right now, I think we're going to jump track a little bit. I I've been kind of cruising around the Facebook reels, the short little blurbs people put on there. And I don't usually listen to psychics. I mean, I listen, but I don't really, I've never really subscribed to it. I felt like, okay, that's what they're getting, or that's their opinion, or wherever it comes from, and it's interesting, but I don't necessarily subscribe to it. However, lately I've been noticing that everything they've been talking about is stuff that I've been hearing for the last 10 years,
And stuff
primarily
that,
from go ahead.
yeah, and stuff that I
Stu-
feel like we've been preparing ourselves for all of this time,
exactly.
and now we're at we're at the edge of the cliff. It's time to jump.
Yeah, exactly. And the typically what I do is, and the way my teaching went was that, you know, nothing's really concrete or set in stone until you get two or three validations if something comes through the spirit world, because you need to feel comfortable with what you're aligning yourself with,
Hmm.
outside of some initial exposure to something. And so, when I hear people talking about things that are starting to happen, uh, um, that my elders been talking about or our elders been talking about for over 10 years, all of a sudden that, it's got my attention. And
Yeah.
I think it's primarily around these solar flares and the alignment of different planets and stuff. I'm not well versed enough in astrology to be able to talk about that, but the thing you and I were talking about before we came on was the breakdown of the matrix.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe we just take that as a focal point on this thing, because I think that people are going to start having experiences uh, way outside of their normal range of things. And if they have some other people that are saying, hey, here's what you may be expecting, or this is what you may be seeing, here's why you're going to see it, it creates a comfort level for everybody in terms of being able to move into this ascension. And so, like I said, there's a lot of stuff online about it. And I think I'd like for you and I to start, maybe use this, and maybe even the next podcast, to talk a little bit about it. So why don't you start by talking about what do you consider the matrix to be?
Well, that's a huge subject. Superficially, the Matrix is this culture that we've built, right? But in a much more profound way, the Matrix is also that the very basis of the fact that it is consciousness that builds reality, and it's actually consciousness that has fundamentally built the universe. The universe is a conscious at its very core, and the matrix is the belief structures that have gone on for, let's say, a billions of years, right?
Right.
And one thing that Mateo was saying on over the weekend, we are a project that has been ongoing. Each one of us is a project that's been ongoing for billions of years, right? Our
Right.
consciousness has been here throughout that whole thread of the evolution and the structure of the actual universe itself. And that was there's a Jack Johnson song about that, how he wants to run through the halls of his high school. He wants to shout it at the top of his lungs that the world is just a grand illusion that he has to get over. And there's a whole lot to that. And that is a very Eastern, more or less Taoist kind of concept. And you'll see it going through all of the different traditions in some form or another. That all of this,
Right.
the whole structure of reality, is something that we've basically melded together in our combined consciousnesses. So here we have this thing that often is called consensual reality. And we've gone through a whole lot of processes, and we've built all of these cultural structures on top of this consensual reality, and some of them are dysfunctional. A lot of them are dysfunctional. And right now, we're struggling with the dysfunction of um, of Western culture, for
Consensual.
example, and all of the different mishmash of cultures that are isolated, have used to be isolated from one another on the globe, are now coming together, and they're struggling to fight for supremacy in all of this. And the creator doesn't have supremacy. That's not a concept that the creator can get its head around. It's like, if you're a drop in the ocean and you think you're a better drop than all the rest of the drops, then go for it, but I'm the
Yeah.
ocean. Right.
Right. Right.
You just
Right.
it,
Right.
it just doesn't wash. There's no sense to it. And so
Right.
these structures that we've built to try and maintain order within ourselves and within our cultures, they're starting to undergo some vast shifts because they can no longer sustain the idea that one being is more superior to another being. And there's the
That's
breakdown.
absolutely right. That's really good. And I love the term. It's the first time I've heard that consensual reality. It's like so I look at it on very similar terms, but to give a visual, I think, through our shamanic path, I'm sure you've had plenty of experiences in fifth dimension of seeing orbs,
Oh, yeah.
energetic. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So, these energetic orbs are in the Castaneda. He mainly talked about it in terms of each individual being egg shaped, and so
Uh-huh.
each individual is sort of orb that or aura, and so Mother Earth being a live being has the same. I think I guess
Yep.
we call it a grid, but it has that same orb, and so the orb is really the basis of consensual reality, I think. Is like
Mm.
it's formed and it absorbs and it retains information. And so through that, there's an evolution of consensual reality that creates the physical manifestation reality that we all experience.
Yes.
And exactly like you said, through our history, humans have basically sought to create order out of chaos, and so that survival becomes not something that is, accomplished by the use of a club or a weapon, but one that is accomplished through a merging of these consensual realities in a harmonious in a harmonic resonance, so that it starts birthing out of those consensual realities a greater whole, a greater sense of purpose, of
Well,
being
that's
a part of
beautiful.
something part. Being in other words, okay, we are an ocean. Now what? What do we do now? And I think that that's what's breaking. I think that and so I think what we're seeing is that these solar flares and these various cosmic things that are happening and are starting to create cracks within these uh, structural dynamics that we created, the humans created out of trying to create order out of chaos, and so and primarily what that's created, it's got upside and it's got downside. The downside being, like you said, is it's created this thing where people have taken on this identity value of, hey, you know what? I'm better. I am a better drop of water, and they set out to prove that. And then the only way they can prove it is to have others validate that for them. And of course, we're seeing that, if you've had a chance to watch Trump in his cabinet meetings, you know, you can't get a better example. Wow, he's just the greatest human being that has ever existed. I still have a job, right? Oh man.
Yep.
So I think it's coming to a head.
Yeah, it all is. I mean, so the thing that hit me there was that word chaos is very overrated. The word chaos is very, very subjective word if you get right down to it, because it is entirely possible in my mind that there is no chaos. Because when we get to that point where we've surrendered and decided to allow the 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 creator to flow through us and the creative forces and the processes to just flow through us, everything seems to go great. Lao
Right.
Tzu, it always said the same thing: just don't do anything. Let it go. And that doesn't mean we
Right.
don't, vote and do stuff, clean the house, right? It just means that we need to kind of let go of our attachment to the outcomes of things, and I think that the root of chaos is our attachment to the outcomes of things. And chaos is an
Absolutely.
apparent source, or it's an apparent effect of the fact that we want things to be a certain way, and we want that person to be doing it a certain way, and they're not doing it. And that's chaos. This
Right.
is all so chaotic. Oh my God, look at those Muslims. What are we going to do
Right.
about that?
Right. Right.
Jesus, look at
Right.
them indigenous people. Oh, you can allow that?
Right.
And there's where the
Right.
chaos comes
Right.
in, when in fact, if I just let it go and I can, mow the lawn in mental peace and zen, I don't have to worry about things are a lot less chaotic when I'm just in that piece of the natural flow, the flow of nature, the same flow that keeps the forest floors working and operating, and that keeps nature operating on the level that it is possible for it to operate if it's left alone.
I saw a really good uh, quote on Facebook a little while ago that fits that. It says, you cannot see your reflection in boiling water.
I love that.
Yeah. You have to see it in calm water. And then like I was like, well, that's
Yeah,
good.
I'm just gonna.
And when so I think when you're caught up in a matrix that has pushed and continues to push the expectations of success,
Uh-huh.
in a physical sense, and that one's identity or personal value gets measured through that. You have a chaotic situation. You've got
Yeah.
a system based on infinite possibilities within a finite system.
Yeah.
And so you end up, all these energies keep banging into one another and then complaining about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's not really, I mean, and this is a hard lesson for me. It just took me forever, and I'm still struggling with it.
Oh,
Actually, I kind of made a big breakthrough last night that we'll go over a little bit later with you. And it was like, there's lot of expectations, particularly on men, that are put on them that you are supposed to be everything. No, you
Yeah.
have to do everything, be everything, produce everything. What I mean, it just goes on, the list goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
And, you get to a point where it's like, this is just way too much. I mean, I can't do everything, and a lot of men, I saw this great interview with this guy earlier, and he said, if you go somewhere where there's five people that have committed suicide, four of them will be men. And he said, there's got to be something done to try to help people, particularly young men, recognize that, look, you're not expected to do everything.
Right. But
You
that there
just
is a patriarchal expectation, right?
absolutely
That is where, and there you're at the fulcrum of how the patriarchy itself is breaking down. It's part of the matrix that's breaking down because it isn't working. Men are not happy. Women have no respect for men, and with for good reason. And the toxic masculinity that has been touted for so long as the as God's way never was and can never be God's way.
right, right. That's exactly right. And well, and we could rag on religion a little bit for that, for eons of
Yeah, but we don't have
patriarchal
time.
priesthood power. We don't have time. Well, so if we're moving into a closeout, I think it's real important that we emphasize to everybody that, you're going to be experiencing moments of clarity. You and I talked about this a little bit. We've had some moments of intense hyper clarity. And the elders in the last session that you and I had with them, they said, if you have those moments, which is a multidimensional moment, it's a multidimensional realization that
Mhm.
you have to flood that space with love.
Yeah,
Because if you flood that space with love, it will respond to you. And
mhm,
it's kind of like the story you had when you were sitting on the curb when those light beings came in and said, "You're doing it backwards. You
mhm.
give, and then we give."
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Yeah,
Oh,
we're not closing out. We got a good 10 minutes here, so we can dig deep into this. So if it is a consensual reality, and if that reality is something that we build with our own consciousness, then really the only effort that's worth doing is an effort that realigns that entire consensual reality towards one of a loving kindness,
absolutely.
centrally motivated or centrally anchored in loving kindness, because it's clearly obvious that the things that are in control lately cannot possibly sustain themselves. You can't go out and say, well, yeah, and troll everybody all the time.
Right,
You cannot lie even when it's in your own best interest and expect good results.
right. I agree with that 100%. And it's going to be, I think that the space is opening up more and more for uh, an instant response to kindness. Is people are going to find more and more that if they're making efforts to be kind, if they're going out of their way to do things for others or to do good deeds, whatever that looks like, that the universe is going to respond to that in pretty quick order, I think. And I think that's probably I think over time, that's going to pick up dramatically to where it'll be palatable,
Mhm.
and so, but initially, I think it's going to be kind of fearful for people. But I think that, particularly young men right now, they're struggling with this identity thing.
Yeah,
What is it they're trying to identify as? And they don't. They're Some are saying, well, you need to be more feminine. Others are saying, no, you need to be more masculine. Both of those are on the edge. They're
right.
they're both on the edges, you know?
But it's all
And
about
so
balance.
it's all about balance, man. You know, you have to be able to handle any threat, any that comes your way, but you also got to be able to cry.
Yeah. You have to be able to bend and you also have to be able to stand strong, you know?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
and so it's the simplest thing on earth that I am struggling with for 70 years and will continue to struggle with until the day I die. And it's the simplest and the hardest balance to achieve. That's just part of the human experience, and that's the way it's set up. That's the
But I think it's becoming more and more important
Yeah, it's
that that
coming
become
to a
a
head.
conscious effort.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're not going to be
Absolutely.
able to sleepwalk our way through life anymore.
No,
We're going to have to
no.
consciously engage in with life and not just, you can't do what your daddy did anymore. It's not going to pan out for you. You're going to,
Yeah, I mean, I think that basically we're going to have to redefine what a woman is and what a man is, and what a union of those two looks like. You know, I mean, redefine them on, very core levels. You know, because it's nice to sit here and say, well, you know, young men need to be more kind and more considerate and all that, but they also need that support.
yeah. And they need to also know how to be supportive. I mean, and protective. I mean, so there are still these roles of protection that have to uh, I mean, we protect each other. My wife protects me from the things that she's best at protecting me from, and I protect her. And this is instead of just having one protector and one, damsel in distress, we're needing to come up and meet in the middle with these things. And
Right.
I'm, obviously, I'm not talking about the genetic makeup of people here. I'm talking about our core values and our core beliefs about ourselves and one another so that they can meld together better in terms of seriously better unity. Those kind of relationships don't have to be heterosexual, but I mean, we're talking in terms of the male and the female aspect of things, right? So I don't want
Right.
people to start coming along going, well, what do you mean? Gay people can't, but yes, they can. We can all balance all of these relationships out in ways that are no longer toxic. And I think that's what we're trying to avoid here is the toxicity of misguided concepts.
Well,
However,
I think we need to convert toxicity into co-creation.
that's a good way of putting it.
And yeah, and I define co-creation as a merging of the spirits of individuals.
Uh-huh.
Everything else, whatever those two spirits are doing on their day job, it's up to them, you know.
Yeah.
But they got to come together in a dream state in order to be able to dance those energies and learn how to dance those energies together so that they work together in harmonious balance.
Uh-huh. And that those dreams come into a conscious reality that is harmonious, like you're saying. Because
Absolutely.
from the dreams come the reality, right? We're dreaming the consensual reality into belief, into
Yeah,
effect.
and I think we can create that protective space. It allows that dreaming to flourish.
Yeah. And that's where a good practice comes in, because there's your protective space, right? And I've been going back to basics in a lot of ways, giving the offerings, running my energies in the morning, saying hello to the creator in the morning rather than just running off to work. These little basic things that we can do every day, offer, offer something to the animals, just make offerings to the earth and to the spiritual energies of the universe that helps us create this what they used to portray in photos and in paintings as that halo around people, right? that halo is the light of God that is your protective polk pole, it's called in the Peruvian traditions, where you have that's your energy body, right? And the brighter your light shines, the more protection that you get. As near as I can tell, that's the way it works for me anyway.
Yeah, and I think that by those offerings, that's another ways of announcing to the earth and announcing to the universe, hey, I want to participate in this. You know, I want to be a participant. I don't want to just be on the sidelines, you know. And so when you do that, you're open to being able to receive more and more uh, teachings, more and more lessons, more and more challenges to help you expand that intent that you're setting by making those offerings,
Mhm.
whatever way you offer them, you know.
Yeah. Sorry, I had spaced out a little bit there. So my
All right.
computer's beeping at me.
Well, so you know, why don't we just wrap this up and then we'll
Okay,
talk about if how you know on the next one how we want to tackle this maybe the same subject in a different come at it from a different viewpoint.
that would be good. Okay, I actually finally wrote something, which is in closing, thank you for your kind attention and for supporting us. We have more resources available on our webpage at earth-ems.com.
There you go.
All right. Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody.
everyone. Thanks for listening.
Good night.